Testing. This is Edward and Ann, and this is the 20th of September, and we're going to talk about another hidden subject, one that concerns all of the sons, and one that's, well, we may not know a whole lot about because we haven't necessarily navigated down this route. But in Deuteronomy 18 and Exodus 22, the word speaks about how much the Lord hates the witches, those that do witchcraft, sorcery, divination, passing the children through fire, whatever. That's detestable to the Lord, and that was a practice that was regularly done by the Canaanites and the Amorites, all of those who are of the lineage of Cain, which really is the lineage or of the satanic input into the generations of man. So when you look at witchcraft, I've often thought, okay, what is the origin of this? But it really goes back to the point in time when Satan began to give man some of the hidden knowledge, which it talks about it in the Old Testament. I can't tell you exactly where, but there were deep things that were hidden from man, and perhaps at the time of Adam and Eve and moving forward, it wasn't really ever in the divine plan initially to make that knowledge known. But what happened when Adam and Eve partook of the tree of knowledge of good and evil? Well, they found out they were naked, but it also opened up a level of insight and knowledge that they had not had. And there's a great deal of this topic that I don't personally understand. It's just what I know by the Spirit, that at that time there was released into humanity a level of knowledge that had been hitherto held back. And Satan began to introduce the knowledge of many different things. Weapons of war, making weapons, working with metals, a lot of different things that was not in the knowledge of Adam at that time. So, where are we going with this? Basically, to say that Satan has a great deal of understanding of how the spirit world works. And he, at that time, began to bring in to the understanding of humanity how to achieve certain goals, how to create certain things. And that's where you have the calling up of the dead to acquire insight or wisdom. And you have divination, and you have these different ways of extracting information from the spirit world, or a way of empowering the capability of an individual way beyond what they would be normally able to do. For example, you can remember the example of what happened when I think this is in the New Testament, but all of these demons would go into a man, and he would become almost impossible to chain because he had this enormous power. And you could say, well, how is that possible? He is strictly flesh and blood, probably doesn't have any more muscles than you or I, and yet all of a sudden something happens, and this individual, with the indwelling of these demonic spirits, can do, feats of strength that are way outside our scope. What's happening there? And I think what's happening is another area that we don't quite understand, because they're harnessing aspects of the mind. And the mind, with its limitations, says, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that. But we know as we come into the mind of Christ, all things are possible. All things. And so, within the scope of darkness, they're able to access capabilities within the mind of man and do these feats. So, anyway, that's just kind of, we're rambling here a little bit. But this is what's happening when you see the input, the demonic input into mankind. And so, what happens? Well, we know that the satanic seed has been passed down from generation to generation to generation since the time of the flood, which was in the mind of God to eradicate all evil. But we know that that didn't completely work out as planned, because something came through. And that seed began to propagate in the earth once again. And so from that, you have the Canaanites, the Amalekites, I call them the ites, I-T-E-S. So many peoples were begotten of that. And you can trace that lineage even today, because it's principally located in the Middle East. But that's at this point in time, it's spread over the face of the earth. So as these cultures began to evolve, you would have the men of renown, you would have the Nephilim, you would have this seed that within mankind that had the satanic input, almost like the satanic modification of the DNA, the human DNA. And so you've got what's evolving out of that. You have men of renown, you have giants. They were so formidable that they scared the spies that were sent to spy out the land. And God had said, hey, I've already given it to you. Joshua and Caleb saw that their shadow had been removed, but the rest of them didn't buy it. And that displeased the Father. And so they went into 40 years of wilderness in the dealings of God because of their lack of obedience, which has been a pattern, even to this day, of the Jewish people. Some people say, oh, the Jews are the chosen race. Yeah, well, they missed that window a long time ago. If anything, the judgments of God are on the Jewish race, big time. But we don't want to go down that road. We're talking about the evolving of witchcraft and sorcery in the world. And so Satan began to teach these races, these Nephilim races, the Canaanites, the Amalekites, all of that, about some of the secrets of the realm of spirit. How to divine, how to, create these things, how to control, how to manifest, a lot of things. And that, was a real concern, because in Exodus, the Lord's response to that is, suffer not a witch to live. And what was happening was that the children of Israel, having been brought up in close proximity with the Canaanites and the other, cultures, began to acquire some of their belief systems. And if you remember when Joshua went in to clear out the land, the commandment from God was kill everyone. When they went in to possess Canaan, it wasn't just kill the soldiers, it was kill all of them. Women, children, the animals, everything. Eradicate them off the face of the earth. Did that happen? No, once again, that did not happen. There were those that were left. And so that has continued to haunt the people of God. Like the prophecy, that's become a prick in the eye. We've talked about that in the signs of the Spirit. So this has continued to evolve. So you have this whole thing of witchcraft that's been handed down from generation to generation to generation. And we know God's stance. Suffer not a witch to live. So what are we doing in this timeline? Well, it's a little bit different in this timeline right now. Because everything has become highly acceptable. How are we doing? Is it working? Okay. Everyone just kind of like this laissez-faire attitude. It's all fine. Just, let it go. Don't worry about it. White witches, dark witches, it doesn't really matter. It's all okay. And that's become the stance of people in this timeline. So you have the propagation of witchcraft and, all of that in the last 100 years. And we can go back and analyze the Theosophical movement beginning in the late 1800s, and the Spiritualist movement, and the seances, and all of that. There's not one thread of God in any of that. And yet the world has become complacent. It's all okay. But it's not okay. The commandment from God still stands. Suffer not a witch to live. Let's take them out. So what's going to happen as the sons move into their position? They're going to take out that which has withstood the kingdom, which has lined itself up against what God is doing. So we've been on a drive to uncover the truth, uncover that which has been hidden. And so, in the visions of last night, came a deeper level of exposing. And to this moment in time, we are shoving a spirited judgment in the realm of spirit right now. God is going to take out everything that has withstood his kingdom and has withstood the sons. The sons are probably getting their skills honed in the battle, in the intensity of the warfare, because it cannot be theory. Everything, has been theory. A lot of things have been theory. But God's causing the sons to pass through their own fire. In the days of Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego were brought into the fire, and nothing was touched except the shackles that had held them. And so the sons during this time are passing through the fire. And it might feel a little warm. And I would just say, well, that's because the heat's been turned off. But all it's doing is burning off the shackles, the restraints, the incorrect paradigms, the illusion, and setting the sons free. It's interesting, in the realm of spirit, we have been looking for the Lord to remove the shadow off the enemy and his channels, to remove that protection that was done in the days of Canaan. When the spies went in and said, their shadow's been removed, which was their protection from the satanic world. So they would have been able, had they gone forward, to really rout the land. But of course they did not. But during this timeline, we are looking for God to remove the shadow off of every evil that exists, whether it's in
Watch out, vehicle stopped on shoulder ahead.
whether it's in the government or it's in the circles of darkness, that are operating. That's what we're looking for right now, is to see that completely eradicated. So we'll continue to push this judgment. Did you stop it? Oh. And we'll continue to see an exposing happen on the very deepest level. And that's what God is doing. And it's interesting. The Lord's going to continue to give tidbits of insight, a little here, a little there, to understand more and more how the spirit world operates and what has been giving them some level of protection, because that's being removed right now. In the night hours, after elements are done, whether the practice of witchcraft, sorcery, or whatever, we have seen these satanic channels retreat to a safe haven. But that safe haven's exposed, and judgment is flowing forth now. And we declare, there shall no longer be a safe haven for the doers of darkness, for the workers of iniquity and wickedness, and for the witches and warlocks. God says, suffer not a witch to live. This is the day of finality. This is the day of absolute finality on the darkness that has been set against the kingdom. Amen.